server. Okay, we'll see like how we are giving this code here. So I'm under directory Om Sripan. So I'm creating a test.sh. So all the shell scripts does have a naming convention ending with .sh. So it's not mandatory that we need to have a .sh, but better to have .sh convention that will enable you to remember or recognize the shell script differently than the flat file, right? Sorry. Okay, so I'm using vi test.sh. So what it does is vi is an editor in Unix shell, which enable us to input the text or write into a file in an interactive mode. Okay, so we will talk in detail about this, how we are, what are the commands and how we need to use a vi editor. For now, just remember, like to input the content into a script, I'm using this editor. Okay. It's not allowing me to. Okay. So I'm writing the same script here again. Okay, now we have written the shell script, right? So let's see, like how we can execute this one, right? So you could see test.sh is my script, and I'm doing cat on this. So you could see the content that we have written there in the v editor. So we have to execute this one. So before that, to execute this, we have two techniques. One is that we need to give sh followed by a script name, right? And otherwise we can use / followed by script name. So either ways you would get the same output. The only difference is the permissions. So you could see on my screen there was an error when I'm executing using a second technique / followed by test.sh. You see that permission is denied. So before we talk about the permissions, so let me give some execute permissions here. I'll get into the detailed information about the file permissions later today. Okay, so I'm adding. So in such cases, when we don't have permissions, but we still wanted to execute the script, we use sh followed by test.sh. Okay. So now what I have done is, like, I have added the permissions, execute permissions to this file, and I'm executing using the second technique that we saw. So right now we're not getting the error, and it will get completed as intended. So in both the cases, it's the same output that we got it. Okay. So now let's turn back to our script to see what we have written, right? So here is the script. So the first line is invoking a bash shell, and the second line is a comment line, and third one we are just printing this. This is my first shell script. So this has been printed as is. Okay, and whereas in the next line, if you could see, in the next line we could see that we have given an enter here, but enclosed that enter also in double quotes. So this is the difference I was talking about. If we are enclosing that in a different in double quotes, it will not be considered as a new. It will be printed as is. So the new line character is also considered here and printed hello in one line, and as whereas world in second line. And ls. So ls command output has listed all the files that are exist under that directory, under the current directory. Okay, and the date. Date has printed the current system date. Okay, so this is our first shell programming. So in very short, right? So I just wanted to demonstrate how we can pass use the commands to construct a shell script and execute that. So with this, now we know how the shell script starts. We're using a shebang line, and how the comments are written, preceded every line preceded with a hash symbol is a comment, right? And we used different commands inside the shell script, correct? So this is what we have learned now. Okay, let's write another shell script. So here I'm going to use different commands, different comments, and probably I'll include a few other commands in the same line itself. So first one again, I'm giving shebang line. So in the comment section, I'm giving this is second bash shell script. You can write anything. I'm just showing an example to show you how the comments are being used. So I can use script name. So in production, when you write, all the comments will have a script name, author name, and everything. So let's follow the same convention, right? And we have author name or written by. Okay, we can use author name. And now we start with our code, the commands, right? So I wanted to greet the user who logged in and who is executing. So I use this. I'll print the directory that they are working in, right? I'll explain you what are the difference that I used in a previous command and this command, this line. And let's use listing of files in your directory again. And then what we can use, okay, the command that to list and echo for now. So here's the script. This is our second script. So what I'm trying to tell you is like here we have used the comments again, the shebang line, the comments again, and inside this echo statement, if you notice it, I have used a dollar here followed by log name, right? So what it will indicate is log name is a command to print who has logged in into the system, who is the current user. Okay. So if you give log name here, okay. So this is a desktop version, so that was the reason like I'm not getting it. But you should have a log name here in any other environment, which I'll be able to set up a VM and I can show you that better. So, but log name will give us, so what is the current user, who has a current user logged into the system, right? And here I'm print. So to get the name, right? So I'm using dollar followed by log name, which should print the log name, right? And I'm using pwd command within apostrophes. Like I said in the first session, it will execute the command pwd here, and it will print the output. Okay, and same thing here, uname -o. It will also this is also a command which will print the system name here. So what is the system name? GNU Linux, right? And this, like it will list the files, and this will list the date, which we saw it in previous example. Let's execute this script. So log name doesn't have any variable because this is a client version, which is an app installed on this desktop. So that's the reason it doesn't have anything. And you could see that, let me cat this test2.sh so I can explain you better. So here you could see that, I'm printing a pwd, the present working directory command, and you see the present working directory is printed here. And I used a command called uname -o within the echo, and GNU Linux has been printed. So to print any variable values, we use $log name. So let's do something else. Let's assign log name equal to, let's assign a variable here, and we'll see like, if that prints, right? And let's execute this. Now you see the difference. So instead of log name here, we have a variable called Shiva. With the value of variable log name, which we have assigned, got printed here, right? And even in the last line, you could see that, the value has been printed. So if at all, if we have to pass any value here to variable, we this is the process to pass the variable value and get that invoked in the print statement, the echo statement that we are using it. Clear, folks? Okay, so let's move on. So we know that how do we assign the variables in shell script? How do we pass them into a statement or any other command, right? And we now learned about how do we use commands inside the echo statement, right? Command inside a command, probably you can call it as, right? So now let's talk a bit about a compiler and an interpreter. Okay, so I'll not be able to show you what it is, compiler and the interpreter, as you all know, and I'll just briefly explain you what is a compiler. So compiler is a to help you understand with a example, right? So keep it as C, C++, Java, or any other similar languages uses a compiler. What it does is, like when you write a C language, it uses a compiler to compile the code, and then we have to execute it. Correct. Be it in Java. So when you write a Java program, it will generate a Java C code, and then that code will be an executable for any program. So in such languages, we call it as compiler-based languages, right? So it checks for the errors or any syntax errors or any runtime errors first, and then it will execute. Whereas interpreter language, what happens is like it executes line by line, right? So if we take our previous program, right? So it reads every line after line, and then it executes. So let's say in this line where I'm highlighting echo list of files in your directory R. So if we have a syntax error during the execution, during this line, meaning like it will execute the first, second line, third line until here, and then it will, when the control comes to the highlighted line, it will be errored out. Okay. To help you understand that, let me make an error here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this. Save. Let's see if that error outs. Okay. If you look at it, it has executed the first line, the first execution line, right? So until here, it's a comments and variable line, variable values, variable assignment. So it did not, I mean, nothing to execute. It just reads the line and then assigns the value, or ignores the comments. The first execution line is hello log name, have a nice day. So you could see that hello Shiva, have a nice day here. And second line echo, you are working in a directory PWD, right? So this has been printed, and next line is also printed. Whereas when the control comes here to the listing of files in your directory, that has been errored out here. You could see that unterminated quoted string. So this is the major difference between a compiler and an interpreter. So in interpreter case, it executes the lines until the errored line, and it will throw the error. Whereas in compiler, it doesn't do that. It will ignore the complete program. Okay. There are pros and cons with both interpreter based and compiler based languages, but let's not get into that. And try. I mean, the intention is to make you understand that shell scripting is a interpreter based language. It interprets line by line in the program and errors out when the error occurs during the execution of the program, right? Okay, so let's look at some pros and cons of shell scripting. Okay, so every program, keep it as a Java, C, Python, or C++, any program for that matter, it has both limitations and advantages. Okay, when we talk about advantages using a shell script, right? So as you see, it's very easy to write it, like we saw in last couple of programs. So it is easy for debugging, and even for it's very quick to start. Like on the second day, when we have learned few commands, we were able to start writing a script. Like no matter how advanced we use it, or is it a basic, so we are able to start with that. So starting a shell script is pretty easy, and executing is even easier. So that makes a difference from any other programming language to shell script. Okay, so we do not have to invest time in much of development. So we really not have to get through a development cycle. Instead, we can just straight away write a shell script and start executing right from there after the certain basic sanity test that we do, right? So and the major usage of shell scripts, right? So you can use it in automating a routine task. Think about this. You wanted to print date and time for or you wanted to greet him. So forget about it. We just get into a previous example that we have executed. I wanted to greet anybody who is logging into the system, correct? So I'll write the script, I'll execute the script, I'll put it in an automated way to execute the script after every user logged into the system. Let's say there is a user called Siva who is logging into the system. So he will be greeted like this. Okay, so this is an automated task that has been enabled to greet and pass certain instructions or warnings to the user who is logging in. It's an automation, right? So such automations can be administrated using a shell script. Okay, and like I talked about, right? So when you use Java or any other program, you have to use a certain integrated development environment. We call it as IDE, right? Be it a Python, Perl, or any other language, we have to use that. Whereas in case of Unix, you can directly write into the right on the server or in a plain notepad, and you can let it transfer it to the server. Okay, and these are the advantages, I would call it, as with using shell script, right? So whereas there are certain limitations as well, right? So what happens is, considering our previous example again, so for log name equal to Shiva, while assigning this, it will create a process. When executing this second statement, echo hello log name, have a nice day. So for even this, there will be a process that gets created, and it uses certain resources. Think about this. This is a very simple statement, but in live environment, we will be using certain uh, uh, I would call it as, very time consuming, resource consuming statements. There can be a statements. Think about this. There is a zip zipping of a file of 20 GB file will be happening. Hardly, I mean, it might be taking longer, and it might consume resources like CPU utilization or even IO, right? So to relate that with a basic example, right? When you zip something on your desktop, it will take longer. The same thing happens even in Unix, but better comparatively with Windows system. Hope you're following me. Stop me like if you have any questions there, right? And so when you talk about compare with the compiler based programs, right? So this compiled code is already kind of one part of it is executed, and it doesn't create multiple processes. Whereas interpreter based like shell script, right? So it executes line by line. It creates a multiple process. So the time of execution will be more comparatively with the compiler based languages. Okay. And one other thing is, think about this for with Java. Like if you wanted to do certain math calculations, which include uh, you know some set of operators, plus minus, all these things, right? Multiplication, subtraction, derivation, and everything. That when you write it in Java program, like it takes less time to do that. Whereas you cannot do that in the robust way in shell script. For any such things, we prefer not to put it into the shell scripts. So I would call it as a math programs. So for basic plus and minus, we can still use it. But if we feel that there's a complex math program, we would not recommend to use it through shell script, right? So, and another major thing is cross-platform. Like in yesterday's session, you might have saw, whereas I'm using a double quotes to print certain things and single quotes to print certain things, it might execute in Red Hat and it might not execute in Ubuntu. Excuse me. So though Red Hat and Ubuntu belongs to the same family, but still like the compatibility issues will be there. So whereas when you write the shell script in Ubuntu and you cannot take it back to AIX, or you cannot take go execute in Linux in the same way as you expect in Ubuntu, right? So from flavor to flavor, the shell script is not so compatible as expected. There might be a features that work and may not be the features that work. So for an instance, right? So to check the CPU utilization in Linux, we use top command, whereas in AIX we use top as command. So such compatible command compatibility issues might exist. So it's not recommended for class platform programming. Okay, and there are few other things that I would not recommend to use a shell script. So even if you are an expert, better not to touch these things because of the complexities that gets involved. Okay, file operations. Let's say you are doing some find replace on the large files. If it is like small in size, should be okay. If it is a large files, I would not recommend for any file operations in shell programming, right? And the data structures. So you might have heard about linked list, trees, binary sort, kind of stuff in the data structures, right? So you'd not be able to use the shell programming there. and other places that I would consider is the graphics and GUI content, where you cannot build an applet in using shell programming. Okay, now that we can use that with Python invoking, we can do that, but let's keep it away from shell scripting. We're considering this is a time consuming and process consuming stuff. Okay, and any operations directly on the hardware, right? So we would not be able to do that. Whereas in Java programming, or we would be able to do it. Think about this: there is a microprocessor that we wanted to operate with a program, right? So you'd not be able to do that with the shell programming. However, we can do that with any other program. Okay. So I'm trying to tell you that this is a limited stock, but still is a better one to do the routine stuff, but not to an extent where you can run a complete program, a complete project with the shell scripts, right? Yeah, these are few things, and let's get into a directory structure that we have. I'll see like if I have a directory structure that got created here in my system. If not, then I would pause this for the next session where I'll have a VM and I can explain you better there. Okay. So meanwhile, like, do you have any questions for me? Any questions? Hope you're following this session. You have to unmute yourself to speak. Okay. So considering no questions. Okay, let's talk about this directory structures. So I'll touch upon the important directories that we see in Linux and the default directories, I would call it as, and I'll explain a little bit about what is the directory all about and what does that it contain. Okay, so first I'll start with a /bin. So before we get there, any file system in Unix start with slash. This is something we call it as root, right? So let's think about this. If I'm doing a pwd here, or so if I'm doing pwd here, you would see a path, present working directory, right? So like this, any directory you will see starting that with right slash. So that is something we call it as root. Okay, so for every system there will be somebody called root user, who is a super user who holds every action on the system, right? So they're the super users, and they hold every permissions to do anything on the system. And you might heard about admin user, right? In Linux terms, we call them as root users. Okay, so the first directory I will talk about is /bin. Um, so for every command that we are executing here, right? So you will see under bin directory. So yesterday I was talking about evolution of Unix, right? So how did it evolve? So we have some programmers called Dennis Ritchie and Ken Thompson. They have written this Unix language. So how did they write? So they should have used some language there, right? They used a C language to write the Unix. Okay, so every command that we execute is again a program that is hidden in the OS commands. Okay. So you could see pwd is a command here, which gave me the present working directory on my screen. So this is again a program. Pwd is a command for us, but it's a program in the back end that executes and gets this output. Let's look at it. Where do we have this pwd command? Okay, we can use which followed by pwd to get the location of this program. Okay, so it is stored in bin /bin/pwd. So as I said, like /bin does contain all the commands that we are executing. Correct? And talk about which ls, so you'd get this under this. So if you wanted to do listing under /bin, you would be able to know what are the commands that are available in the system. So you could see sh here. These are all the commands. More, you could see this, and these are system md commands which will not be using it. You could see grep, ps. Every command that we use on Unix will be stored under /bin directory. Along with, there are few other files that get stored. So bin stands for binaries, right? So all the programs, all the commands that we use are binaries of Unix, which are written here. So the problem is, like, I would not be able to open that screen, open that program and show you that, because it's a encrypted one and we'd not be able to see that. Correct? Okay. And the next directory that I'm going to talk about is /boot. Right? This requires, this contains, the /boot folder contains all the files that are required for the starting of the system. Let's say you need to start the Unix system. So for any operating system has to be rebooted, right? When it is starting up, so it will use the binaries that are exist under /boot directory. And in the same way, when we are stopping this, it will have all the binaries that use under /boot directory. Okay. And the next one I use is /dev. So this has a device driver files. So this folder will have a device driver files. Okay. So you might have heard about drivers in your system, right? Like the print drivers, communication drivers, all those stuff. So similar way, it will have multiple drivers, be it a network related or communication. Drivers will get saved under /dev. Okay. And /etc, this is again another folder that helps in basic configuration stuff, which will help us for server management, be it a startup or shutdown. So it uses the configuration files here and even in the boot as well. Okay. And the next important directory I have is /home, where the users will have the folder for all users. Let's say if we are creating a user now, right? So I'm creating admin might create a user. Let me do. So you could see that, I have a username with my name on it, and it is stored under /home. When the username is created, they'll get a folder that gets created under /repo. Right. So such user folders will get stored under /home. Okay. And the next one I have is /lib. So it contains the library files. You might have heard about C programming if you are part of computer background, or if it is a part of your curriculum. So we use certain libraries to execute certain C programs, right? You might have heard about stdio, conio, console input output, standard input output .sh, .h, right? So those libraries those are basic libraries, but such libraries will get stored under library /lib directory. Okay. And think about this. Certain Unix drivers does have a /opt. It's not mandatory. This opt stands for optional directory, where, think about this, like we need to install Oracle. We need to find a place to install it, right? You might have seen during your desktop installation in Oracle session, we will be storing that OPF files, or the data files and the installation in some directory, either C, D, E, F, or whatever the directories that you have in your system. Likewise, we will have a mount here that gets created to install any such applications. Okay. So in this case, I'm referring Oracle as one of the application, but think about this: in your production environment, you might have to install certain deliverables on your Unix server. Admin usually takes care of it, but on your server, such things will be saved under /opt, or probably they can rename that to anything else. Okay. I can rename it to Washi or anything that I wanted. So it's optional. Okay. So for the, I mean, for showing it, I'll keep it as /opt folder, right? And we have something called /proc. These are like standard, and /proc will be used for kernel related information. Like it will have all the information about a kernel, which interacts with shell, which is a bridge between the shell and hardware, right? So those information will be available under proc, and for any any files that are interacting with OS will get saved under proc, and it will get deleted eventually when it is not when it is instructed. Okay, and next one I have is sbin, which is little important one. Um, this contains certain commands that are being used by our administrators. Okay, um, be it the network configuration or server administration or user administration, such commands will be stored under sbin directory. Okay, so these are pretty much I have. If I come across anything, I'll be able to show you that on the go. Okay, for now these are the important directories, and during your interviews you might get a question about what are the directories that you are aware in the in a basic Unix system, right? You don't have to talk about your application that you are working on, but you can refer to these directories to help them understand better. Okay, this shows your knowledge about core knowledge about Unix. Okay, so if you are attending a core Unix interview, you can expect a question about that, right? And the next thing that I wanted to talk about here is permissions. So before we get there, so I have covered man pages in my previous session, right? So hope you got to go through that. So the man pages, I just wanted to repeat for the sake of larger audience. So man is a command, stands for manual, right? So man followed by any command gives the manual page um, related to the command. Okay, so let's see. It's taking time. Yeah, there you go. So man followed by pwd has gave me the name of the command, print current working directory or present working directory, we can call it as, and synopsis stands for the syntax, and you could see the description that we can use along with this. So why I had to repeat this is, so it's very common that if we are not using any command during a longer run, you might tend to forget. So any Unix developer or any Unix geek, right, will have a man pages open on their machines. So there's no harm in it. Okay. That's the reason like I'm repeating this. Okay. And moving with that, right? So you might have heard about, you might have noticed that when I'm explaining about /bin directory, I have used something called which followed by command, right? So at any point of time, if you wanted to look if the command doesn't exist, right? So in such cases, you can use, let's say I'm executing awk. Okay. This will not exist. Okay. This does exist. What about said? This does exist. Okay, there are certain commands which does not exist, or topaz. So this will not exist, I think, but let's see. Yeah, topaz not found. So you can check it under like since this is Ubuntu is most customized system, like you are getting this topaz not found. But in such certain cases, you might have to look out for if the command exists or not. In such cases, you can use this which command. So if you don't get anything, you don't have that available. If I do top, you will see this, right? So this was the difference I was talking about, and which will give us the information about a command where it has stored. Okay, and you can always like the stop command or any command for that matter must have stored in different ways. Like when I was talking about user uh, directories, right? Sorry, the basic directories, right? I said, like, few files will get stored in bin directory, few files will get stored in sbin directory, right? So the bin folder does contain the generic commands that we use, that will be used by the end user, whereas sbin will have the commands that are being used by um, uh, uh, admin users, right? So it depends on, right? So uh, from from the place where the command is being invoked, the output will differ, remain same. Think about this. There is somebody by mistake created a file called top. So when you hit top, that program will get executed. Think about this. Like, let me show you this. Pwd. I'm creating a command file with top command. So before that, let me show you what is top. So top will give us this output, right? I'll explain this output later. But let me create one file with name top, right? If I execute top, okay, um, slash home Sripal top. So here permission is denied. So meaning that I'm not able to execute that. If I have to execute this bin or usr bin top, in such cases it will execute without any issues, right? So it's very important to find out from where you are executing the command in case if your output is not as expected. In such cases we can check that command using which option, right? So whereas the next scenario is the top command might have listed in many places, like in bin directory, like user bin directory and slash sbin directory, right? So in such cases, we use various command, and it should get us all the paths where the top command is stored. Yeah, you could see that you have one under user bin top, and you have one under user share man one top one dot zz. I don't know what it is, but these are the places where it can get executed. Okay, so this is something that we use, and I also has started typing some command, but I missed it. Let me cover that. So to know who are all logged into the system, we use who. It is not displaying the output here. The reason being, we don't have, I mean, this is a desktop version and I don't have server version, which you have to wait till like tomorrow to get this completed. Okay. And at any point of time, if you wanted to exit from this prompt, you can type either exit or control plus D, or, you know, or even if you close this terminal, that will also do. And the safest way to exit is exit from the screen is type exit and hit enter. Okay, so that's logged you out. And what give me a moment. So now let me turn back to